Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We are back in the pub. No Patrick Van Straten, instead we've got Zachary Jalab in the hot seat today. How are we, gents?
Not too bad at all. We're not too bad. You're in crutches.
I am on crutches, although it's crutches as much as, isn't it? Like, I can hobble about.
Like, that's the saying.
A&E have given me crutches, but I don't think I really need
You're playing it up, because that's not like you at all.
Yeah, I basically twisted my ankle playing five-a-side. Was lucky enough to play at Old Trafford this week, scored a goal as well. Dreams come true, then came back same day, five-a-side, done my ankle. Beautiful. Then spent 6 hours in A&E for them to tell me it's just ligament damage. So that's...
You know what I enjoyed about your post as well from Old Trafford?
There's lots more posts
because you've been there before, you've played there before, right? And yeah. I liked how you thanked the brand and you were like, for making...
My dreams come true.
Yeah, a 12, 11-year-old Joseph Tomlinson's dreams come true, and then you were like, for a second time. Because he'd already played there.
Yeah. Although, did score again there. Did score again in front of the Stretford end.
Better goal this time.
Best mates of Rio as well now.
I don't know. I think the first goal was better technically, because I'm drifting past people. This one was like 25-yard curler. So... I think first one was better technically. This was not the best piece of goalkeeping.
If Zach had scored them, they'd be up on Twitter the next
I know.
hour.
I haven't got the footage yet. As soon as I get it, the footage is going on there.
I scored a screamer not too long ago.
As soon as I get the footage, it's going straight up there. You went to the Blues?
Nice. I went to the Blues indeed, yeah. Watched Chelsea versus Leicester on Thursday. It's just
a
nothing game, and also just felt like a match that I watched. Like, it was boring.
Right.
So boring.
End of the season fatigue.
Indeed, yeah, very much so. You saw Rangers Leeds?
I did, yeah, buzzing. I wanted to be gracious on the night. Didn't really like rub salt.
That annoyed me that you wouldn't rub it in.
But I was like, some of the things that came out of my mouth when Eintracht Frankfurt won the Europa League, it was like a throwback to, some of the things I'd hear as a kid from like a 40, 50-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah, down at the Celtic fan club in Leicester. Yeah, apart from that, I went to Burton on Monday. Went to St George's Park. Very impressive. I went to interview Joe Cole, who we've done some stuff with before. Lovely guy. Walked in there. Sometimes footballers have their entourages. There's lots of brand people buzzing about. It was like him and his agent, who's clearly his lifelong friend, just lying on the massage tables, and he was like, "What are we doing then?" So it's quite low key. It was nice.
What a boy.
Perfection. It's a big day in the Premier League today, of course. It is the final day of the Premier League season. Loads to play for. So make sure you watch that. But before we get into Premier League sort of games this afternoon, we've got our end of season awards,
of course,
coming for you. We do this every year on Sunday Vibes. We've got 15 categories today, so there is some heavy ones, but there's also some fun ones in there. Should we just start with a simple one? Player of the year. And there's only one answer, isn't there? There is only one answer.
I mean, there is, but I also think we should entertain people like Son.
Yeah, Son needs a shout out, but he's not winning it.
Okay, should we talk about his credentials before we just divulge, into Mo Salah? Because it is the first time that Son's hit over 20 league goals this campaign. He's got 28 goals and assists.
No penalties either.
No penalties either. Harry Kane's on them. Probably would have secured top goal scorer. Had Harry Kane let him take a few, but that's not going to happen, is it? Rightly so as well.
Well, it might still happen if he could score today a hattie against Norwich.
Yeah.
And Salah doesn't score or something like that on the final day. It's not impossible.
Pillage Norwich, not off the cards. Could also be 1-0 to Norwich. That means he's been involved in 43% of all Tottenham's goals this season. So it's been the first time in a long time they've not been heavily reliant on Harry Kane to do all of the business in the final third. Although his consistency over the last 7 seasons he's been at Spurs has been alarming. I suppose Spurs have relied on him in the past, but he's sort of taken point, hasn't he, this campaign, and deserves some recognition for that. I think it's 0.76 goals and assists per 90, non-penalty goals and assists per 90 in his 7 seasons at Tottenham, which marginally shades Harry Kane's return, but over 10 seasons. So,
do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think? I think he's maybe
frightening, isn't it?
Maybe. I was going to say the best finisher in world football there, but I think he's in the conversation for it.
He's so two-footed, isn't he?
I think he's overperformed expected goals by 7 this season. This guy, I can't think of any more clinical one-on-one finishers than Son in world football.
He's hitting a target with 53% of his efforts, which is
crazy.
Which is pretty much unheard of. To give you like some comparison, I think Ronaldo and Kane are on like mid-30s. So yeah, he's turned into much more of a striker this season under Conte, hasn't he? Like, he's developed a ruthless streak that you normally associated with Harry Kane. But yeah, what a player. And I'd like to see him get top goal scorer. Like his consistency and what he's done for Spurs deserves some sort of individual recognition, because he's not going to get a team award, is it?
And he's been so important, especially earlier in the season when Kane wasn't banging, he was not getting assists or don't think he scored until
took him a long old while to get up to speed,
halfway through the season. And that's when Son came in. Like Son was absolutely
Yeah.
fantastic and kind of dragged Spurs through that first half of the season.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that he definitely deserves recognition. He's in the top 3 for me. The top 2 can really, in my opinion, only be KDB and Salah. Like, they are the best 2 players in the league. I think KDB is the best player in the league, but I actually still think across the course of the season, I know that he's had a dip off over the last couple of months, and Luis Diaz has been able to carry some of that burden. I think it has to be Mo Salah. I think to be 7 goal involvements clear of his closest competitor at this stage of the season, although Son has the opportunity to overtake him on goals, he won't be able to come close to him in terms of goal involvements. I just think that Mo Salah, for what he did, especially pre-AFCON, we were talking about this guy being the best player in the world, a Ballon d'Or winner potentially in the making. I think even though he's had 3 slightly poor months in and amongst it, he's still been, for me, the player of the year.
Yeah, 100%. He continues to get better and better every single year. I think he's now is he in his 30s now? Or is
Yeah,
I think he's
just hit 30.
30.
And continues to improve. I mean, this season we've seen people speak about obviously the next generation of Liverpool's attack. Will it be Mane they maybe let go of? Is it Firmino, whatever? But Salah is always the consistent. You keep him in there.
Mate, his consistency is underrated. I think he's missed 9 games in like 200 for Liverpool.
Ridiculous. And also,
like that.
but his level in the big games as well. Like, he's so important for Liverpool in those kind of big matches, whether it's against City, whether it's against
non-penalty goals
Chelsea. Yeah, don't remind some of them.
Slip that in there.
Goal of the season, though, for me this season
against City.
In a big game when he just turned into prime Messi, went past players.
Do you know what? For me, because of KDB's first half of the season, because it was a little bit lackluster by his normally, very, very high standards, I think Son splits these 2 for me. So I'd go Salah, Son, KDB, because in my mind, and don't get me wrong, I think KDB technically is the best footballer in the league. Don't get me wrong. In my mind, I mark guys like Salah and KDB down for individual awards because of the caliber of player that is around them.
Very good point.
Son, in my mind, gets a little bit of a boost because obviously this was a Spurs fronted up by Nuno Espirito Santo at the start of the season, went disastrously wrong.
Who got manager of the month? First month.
Yeah, the first month. And like Zach said, Son probably had to carry his side more than these respective players. But Mo Salah, like, to take all that into context, like, is still clear. 35 goals and assists in 30 starts is ridiculous. He's now hit 20 goals in 4 out of his 5 campaigns in England since he returned to these shores post Roma.
So is it Salah?
Yeah,
and he scored more goals than Norwich, Watford, and Burnley. He's been involved in more goals than Norwich, Watford, and Burnley this season.
I mean, if anyone can ever say it's
staggering.
not Salah, like,
well, I think there are arguments to be made about KDB and some, but I think all right, we'll agree. Let's go.
Yeah.
Salah.
Well done, Mo.
Player of the year, Mo Salah. Young player of the year. I'm hoping this might split opinion slightly
more divisive.
Zach, let's come to you first on this one.
Well, I'd love to give a shout out to Mason Mount. Obviously, he is 23 now. It's one of those ones where, should he really be within Young Player of the Year? It's his 3rd season in the Premier League. Obviously getting double figures for goals and assists this season. It seems like every year he gets better and better, and he's basically Chelsea's main man. But it's not the guy that's going to get it for me. It's Trent Alexander-Arnold. Again, the same kind of criteria, I think, as Mason. He's been in the Premier League for 4-5 years now.
This is his 5th season. Yeah.
Exactly. But technically, by the rules, he is still within the Young Player of the Year. And when you're looking at it like that, like, I think he's got 19 assists this season in all competitions, 2 goals. He's just ridiculous when it comes to it. And without him, like, I think you see such a drop off in the Liverpool squad.
Yeah, he's basically irreplaceable though. And I do want to shout out another right back. I think fits into the category, Reece James, who I think has 13 Premier League assists now this season.
He was injured
and
for a good 3 months.
Played about 1,000 minutes less than Trent. So very good going to get up towards that standard, because we are talking about like an era-defining talent in Trent Alexander-Arnold and a positional-defining talent. I think Trent is probably, I agree, I think he probably has been the Young Player of the Year award, but is it a bit boring to give it to him? Is it a bit boring?
I think what we're kind of gearing towards here is that we disagree with the criteria for the award.
Defo.
Of course, you can still win the award if you are 23 and below at the start of the season. So people like Aaron Ramsdale have been nominated despite being 24 and despite having a terrible run.
I thought it was very interesting that all of the Young Player of the Year nominee candidates this year are English. Every single one.
Historically, it's normally an English talent that wins it.
Yeah.
It's got to be an exceptional talent, otherwise, like an Eden Hazard.
I feel like shout-outs have to go as well to someone like Tyreek Mitchell, who's been fantastic at Palace.
Been
Mark Gehi as well. Mark Gehi was brilliant as well for Palace too.
Nominees were Trent, Phil, Declan, Rice, Aaron Ramsdale, Saka, Gallagher, Mitchell.
It feels like maybe only Gallagher, Saka, and Mitchell should be the three. Like if we're doing it within our own kind of criteria.
My young player of the year is Rice. I'm going Declan Rice.
Declan Rice.
Go on then.
Yeah.
Open up.
I just think that Declan Rice's transition this season from a player that we were like, he is a good defensive midfielder. I genuinely believe now we're looking at one of like the future world-class talents in that role. Yeah. And he's not just a defensive midfielder anymore. I think by yards carried on the ball, he's up there amongst the best in entirety of Europe. Isn't it? Yeah. He's actually added a couple of goals to his game this season, which whenever you speak to West Ham players or like West Ham coaches or anybody like that, they say that in training he's the best finisher. He's so good in and around the box. I think that's definitely something he's going to look to add to his game. Not that he really needs to, because I think he is slightly better in the reserve role than this sort of anywhere around the edge of the box. When he's kind of picking out deep and driving through teams, a little bit a la Patrick Vieira back in the day, I think he's at his best because he's just so physical, so hard to stop. For me, I would go Declan Rice just because I think Trent's a bit boring of an answer, and like it's kind of expected. It's just Trent. He's like generational talent. Okay, yeah, give it to him again. But Declan Rice for me this year has been the best young player in the league. I
mean, if we're sticking strictly to the rules, like Trent should take it. Like you said, no one really is on his level when it comes to
None of these are the best player in their position in the world other than Trent.
Yeah, no one has the same sort of ceiling as him, I imagine. Maybe Declan Rice is sort of approaching that territory, Bukayo Saka as well. I mean, Trent is creating 4.6 He's creating 4.6 shots a game for his teammates. I think he's creating them or taking them. Only KDB, Grealish and Ziyech are managing more in the Premier League, and this is a right back. Like I said, redefining the position.
He's the best in his role in the world, and none of the other young talents can say that. Yeah. But it's just dull. So I'm saying Declan.
I pulled this from our Team of the Year script that he's creating 2.7 chances a game this season. Dani Alves topped out at just 2.1. Yeah. And that is probably, before Trent came to the fore, you'd hold up Dani Alves, you'd put him on a pedestal as the best attacking fullback to ever do it. Saying all that, I'll probably go with Bukayo Saka. Just because, again, in my mind, I am marking people down for being 23. I think it's absolute bullshit that these people could be in their 5th campaign and still win Young Player of the Year. But then, I have got to acknowledge that I disagree with the criteria. But Bukayo Saka ends the season playing, I think, every league match, or at least so far. 17 goals and assists, the same as Sadio Mane. He's 20 years old. He turned 20 this season. I don't think there's a better young player, emphasis on the young, than him this campaign.
Well, he's the only legitimate youngster.
to have dragged his team through.
Also, I think Conor Gallagher deserves a shout out here as well. Real breakthrough campaign. Even though whenever I watched him for West Brom, I thought this lad's really got something special. And I think again this season he's proved it. So big shout out to Conor Gallagher. But we're going young player Rice, Trent.
I feel like mine's too boring.
Boring.
But you've stuck to the rules.
Exactly.
Rice, Trent, and Bukayo Saka. Okay. Manager of the year. Again, do we want to include Jurgen Klopp? Because I'm not being funny. It has to be Jurgen Klopp.
Oh, really?
Really? He's got to 4 cup finals. He's won every single game in every single cup competition, basically.
We should maybe call these our alternative awards.
Because I feel like maybe
I've avoided stuff like this.
I didn't go Pep or Klopp just because I felt like it was too of a...
But Klopp trumps Pep, notably.
But isn't it is it not just Prem?
I mean,
can you take in regard? Can you look into the other?
I think you've got to because of the fact he's played 60 games. He's got to every cup final available. He's played every game in every competition available.
That's
so mental. Really that is so mental.
I started to open up here. I started to look to the continent by category 3 because I was getting a little bit bored at how predictable the answers were coming. Do you want to hear my brain dump, my short list? I've still not decided either.
No, so you've not got these aren't Prem.
No, they're a mixture, and I also
avoided
Klopp and Pep because I didn't think would bring any value to the subscribers back home just by saying Klopp or Pep. So I haven't decided yet. I'll do it on the spot. I had Frank, Vieira, Howe, Potter, Cooper.
Frank Lampard was that, or Thomas Frank?
Thomas Frank. Xavi, Pellegrini, Ange Postecoglou, obviously. Even Ivan Juric at Torino's done an incredible job. Philip Clement at Monaco, like that.
There's lots of names coming out here.
Salernitana coach David Nicola, he's going to keep them in the division, and they were, I think, bottom after 31 games.
Well, if we're going by that, then
after 31 games.
Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe's taken the third most points in the Premier League in 2022 behind Liverpool and Manchester City. And I know, he spent £100 million. Yeah, I know he spent £100 million. But on paper, Trippier's missed 3 months. Yeah. Wilson's been consistently injured. Wood has scored in 1 goal. The rest of the team he has got playing in a way you did not think was possible with that group of players.
And realistically, apart from Bruno Guimaraes, like the others are... Dan Burn,
who's been good. That's what
I mean. That's what I mean.
Matty Targett's been good.
Exactly, but they're not like world-breaking, unbelievable talents who are going to win you every single game.
They're certainly not the players that have any right to have taken the third most points in the league in 2020.
And they deserve credit for their approach in the transfer market because they didn't necessarily go for the big names. They went for solid Premier League performers who are probably fit in personality-wise or had the personality to sort of help them out.
And Wood hasn't quite. Some of them haven't quite worked, yes, but. The job Eddie Howe has done has been monstrous, and we were sat on Sunday Vibes back in the Phoenix when he took over. Pato was hammering him. We were unconvinced.
He still does, to be fair.
I think Pato said that Frank Lampard is a better, safer option than Eddie Howe.
Well, no, he called Eddie Howe uniquely unqualified. I think I was the only positive person.
Yeah,
I think I was the only pro-Howe person back then.
I was wholly unconvinced, and I'm not sure whether he can take him to the next level, Eddie Howe. It wouldn't surprise me. And I don't think it would surprise any of us, actually, if there was a bit of a dodgy run and Jose Mourinho was taking over at the club.
100%.
But I do think that he deserves huge plaudits. So I would go Klopp, probably Pep, boring, and then Howe.
I quite liked. I've got down here because again I didn't want to go for the Klopp Pep one. I've got down David Moyes, considering again maybe I've taken in the Europa League, how far they went in with that as well. But considering the change over the past 2 years now from that relegation battling side to challenging for European places, we've not really that much spending as well. Toe-to-toe with Man United, who are spending hundreds of millions every summer, and the development of players as well, like getting the best out of Jared Bowen, making Declan Rice into one of these best midfielders in the Premier League, the signings of Kurt Zuma and these guys when he's not kicking a cat, he's been pretty decent on the pitch. Craig Dawson, I've watched Craig Dawson become one of the best centre backs in the Premier League this season. He's ridiculous at times.
One of the he's been good.
Over the top.
I think he's been underappreciated.
I think he's been fantastic this season.
His hair looks like it's made out of straw.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when everyone kind of thought his career was.
And not all of his transfers worked in the summer, even Moisey. Like Vlasic has been.
It's not that he hasn't worked. He's just not. I don't really think he's had minutes.
They paid about 26 million.
He's not really had any minutes, to be honest. And so David Moyes is an option. I also put down Conte as well because joining in.
Well, let's see what happens against Norwich. If they lose against Norwich,
he looked down honestly. But when Nuno is there, especially the latter end of his 3 months, they look down and out.
Arteta had been totally discounted by everyone after the Newcastle result because he was in the conversation.
Mate, if he gets top 4, absolutely.
Had they secured Champions League football, I think. Yeah, he's owed his dues, right?
100%, and he's done.
Or he would have been
even if he's not manager of the year, like in this category, he's done an amazing job this season. Some of the Arsenal fans that I see on Twitter demanding his head are an absolute bunch of morons, and I have no problem saying that because he has managed to successfully clear out some of the problem players, some of the deadwood, some players that were earning astronomical wages, whilst also building a team playing a positive brand of football that's average age is one of the youngest in the entire league, with some superstar young players like Bukayo Saka and Martinelli, all in the same season, overachieve, and still managed to bottle it, which I don't know how he's managed to do on the last few games. 4 points clear with 3 games to play, you've got to be getting.
I think he helps himself sometimes in the press. Like when he comes out and he's very overly confident, and then obviously, very spicy. And then he's got people being
like, you marry that approach up with people are very fickle when it comes to analysing.
Oh, it's unreal.
People's performance in the media, like when Fergie did that, they were like, he's creating a siege mentality and he's protecting his players.
But I think Fergie had been doing it for so long.
Yeah, but if you're going to be spiky, you also have to be successful. Otherwise, people just.
But he's maybe not a candidate for manager of the year,
he might get mentioned later on.
He's just done a great job.
I'd still go for Ange Postecoglou. Who are we going for?
Postecoglou. Well, can I say Klopp is just super boring? If not, I'll say Howe.
Okay.
One of the two.
Moisey.
Okay. Unsung hero.
Well, sticking with West Ham, Jared Bowen. I do think recently he started getting his
It's a good
plaudits. I do think he's getting his plaudits, but 12 goals and 10 assists this season. Like, he's become one of if not their main, maybe just after Declan Rice, the main man.
Yeah.
Been very good as well in the Europa League. I think it's 3 goals and assists as well there, or a goal and 3 assists, something like that. But yeah, the West Ham fans absolutely adore him, and he's like, again, gone to that next level. And you think maybe next season as well, he might, if they get their signings right and maybe get another striker that he can kind of play alongside or just behind, can take him to that next level. Like, I think we've mentioned before that if Liverpool were looking to maybe try and get a Premier League proven, another kind of guy that can play across that front three,
Manchester United.
Yeah,
sure,
well,
he'd be a great option.
Brings an end
Kills it.
to that.
United.
Yeah.
I keep every time I see Bowen, I think on the right hand side, can drift, can play central, left footed. But
such a nuisance.
It's going to be too expensive.
Such a nuisance.
I really like that Jared Bowen shout. I had Joe Linton down, but I don't know whether that counts as this because I would have him as the most improved. Has he been unsung? Because so many people have talked about him so much now because he's kind of totally revolutionised his life in the Premier League in this new box-to-box midfield role. I think he has just been awesome for Newcastle. So unsung hero, I would potentially say him. I also just think every time anybody says underrated, unsung, I always say Joel Matip. I think Joel Matip is one of the 3 best centre-backs in European football this season. I think he's probably been the best centre-back in the league.
I think
he might have had a better season than Van Dijk.
Yeah, which is, I think most of his numbers are better.
He's been ridiculous.
I think Joel Linton probably suits another category better further down this list, and I'd say Matip has been like historically the best answer the last couple seasons, but I think people have finally twigged. Now he's stayed in the side consistently that he's actually class.
Well, they bought Konate, and I know obviously it takes time to get into that side, but when you buy Konate for £35 million, like someone, like one of the best ones,
game, isn't he?
No, for sure, but like, and he's not even getting into that side of the Premier League. Like, I think,
and Joe Gomez was a main feature of that side 2 seasons ago, and is now getting absolutely nothing. Yeah, I mean, props to Matip for keeping them out of the team. Again, I've got a bit of a short list. I think Jared Bowen was going to be my sort of outstanding shout. I had a think about Eric Dyer, about maybe Ben Davies as well.
He was on my list as well.
Yeah, but I actually
Davies.
When I paid it a bit more thought, I actually think that the Spurs back line as an answer is better than any individual player. Like they've been solid as a unit, and I think
only under Conte though. We're giving him 6 months.
I think Conte's found a good blend, or he's given them good instructions. Like they're playing well, Dyer, Romero, and Davies as a unit. So I didn't want to really sound out any individual from that. I think one of the. I had Dougie Freedman down as a bit of an outlandish answer. You know, the Crystal Palace sporting director, like to turn over that team and to help make it what it is now, I think deserves a lot of credit. Who did you end up on?
Well, I just throw in Jordan Pickford's name in there because I just he basically kept them in the league.
The last 10 games, he's just really
monstrous.
Good. I mean, though, one of the goals that went in yesterday was actually shambles.
Am I going Matip?
Matip's a good up, but I would also say, it's something that we have said for the past.
It's just a bit obvious, Matip, isn't it?
I was thinking halfway through the
season.
I'll stick
with Joe Linton.
Halfway through the season, I like James McArthur at Palace. Every time I watched him, he seemed to serve a really important function at the base of that midfield, but then he's only ended up starting 15 games this season. I had a thought about Danny Parejo as well, once again, like carrying a Spanish side on his back. Minamino's got 10 goals in 812 minutes. That's ridiculous when...
Is he?
Yeah, in all competitions. Yeah. Like, he deserves some credit for that. But I think he's featured in one of our scout reports recently as well. I'm going to go for Kalulu at Milan, just because to only have 7 games under your belt going into this season, to be sort of raised.
It's just Premier League only.
Raised as a right back.
Premier League now.
We can stick with Prem. I think Jared Bowen's probably the best answer with Prem, but I wanted to put a bit of respect on Kalulu's name as well.
I totally respect that. All right, next category then. We just did Unsung Hero. Let's do Overrated. Most overrated player of the year. Let's go Hamster. What are you thinking?
Obviously, I put that tweet out about 2 or 3 months ago where I said I'd rather take Harvey Barnes to a World Cup than Smith Rowe, which really wound up Arsenal fans, which I enjoyed. Now, don't get me wrong, Smith Rowe is an extremely high ceiling. I think technically a wonderful player. Do question how he's going to get into this Arsenal side moving forward, and his form in the last 6 months has been alarming, or 5 months, let's say. Now, apparently, he might be suffering from long COVID, and we saw
It's not known that George Wright has just said this.
You're actually going to say it, Emil Smith Rowe for
No. He got taken off after 52 minutes against Newcastle, which was alarming. 2 goals in the last 5 months. No, I just wanted to reiterate that Harvey Barnes has finished with more goals and assists this season for all the Arsenal fans watching.
It's Harvey Barnes.
And I think Arsenal fans need to stop putting Smith Rowe on a pedestal to an extent, because let him just progress at his natural rate. I have actually gone for the impact of Bruno Lage, and we were all guilty of halfway through the season on Sunday Vibes. We were all like, Bruno Lage has turned Wolves around. He's doing this, that, and the other. We did an explained video on him. But come the end of the season, expected points puts them 15th. Only Burnley, Watford, and Norwich have scored fewer goals, and they have been difficult to watch at various points this season. So I actually think
I do think it's harsh, mate.
Probs that.
I do think it's harsh. The reason I think it's harsh is
but we built him up, didn't we? So I thought it suits the criteria
we built him up,
quite
but only
well.
because what he was doing this season. We weren't building him up before he took over. People were talking about
shot a load halfway through the season.
People were talking about Wolves going down at the start of the season.
What people?
Plenty of people. When Nuno left, plenty of people were talking about them being at least in a relegation scrap. He's got them finishing potentially top half. I don't have
any conversations with any of those people, thankfully, because that's ridiculous.
Even at halfway point, we were talking about him potentially being the manager of the season.
Yeah, and it's just...
So how can we go to overrated? He's had no case
because we put him in that category halfway through the season. That's why I'm putting him in here. He's fallen from a great height.
I think he's had a good first season at Wolves.
Over the course of the season, yes, solid. I won't say any more than solid, but we were raging about halfway through the season.
Halfway through the season, he's dropped off.
It's not necessarily his fault that he's in this category, but I think the football community did get very caught up on the impact he made.
I think they also just enjoyed a Wolves side that was a little bit different, but then he also realised, to play with the Wolves side, we have to be defensive. I have gone for the realisation of Bruno Fernandes.
So you think Bruno's overrated?
This feels philosophical. The realisation.
You can't go for the realisation.
No, but what I mean is, compared to last season when he was people were touting him for one of the best players in the league and everything, to now this season, I think everyone kind of realised that maybe the stall they put him on last season.
So are you calling Bruno overrated then?
I am calling Bruno.
Your most overrated Premier League player of the year is Bruno. I'll be honest with you.
No, in comparison to last year, that's the way I'm looking at it. It's because everyone was calling him the best player he was arguably at times the best player in the league and all this stuff. Whereas obviously now,
wasn't he, last year?
Come on. Whereas obviously now we've looked at him and it's gone.
Mate, I agree. He's had a really poor season.
It was either him or Lukaku for me, to be honest.
But nobody's rating Lukaku, are they?
What do you mean? When Lukaku first joined, bro? When Lukaku first joined,
we were rating Lukaku.
No, but if you're not looking at how the whole season's gone, we were sitting here 9 months ago going, Lukaku's going to win Chelsea the Premier League.
Yeah, this is it.
He's going to score 25 plus goals.
Right now, Lukaku is a meme, isn't he? I don't think there's a single person in the country that's rating him. So to say he's overrated, I think is...
Well, that's not even Zach's answer anyway, so maybe let's not get distracted by the Lukaku issue.
Bruno's an interesting one because he has had a poor season, but so has every Manchester United player, effectively. The coaching standard has been non-existent. He has regressed because of that. He doesn't... I don't think he knows where he's playing, what he's doing, what he's trying to do. Basically, it's like... At United, give the ball to each other and try some madness. Yeah. And that's where Bruno is at his worst, because he just does nonsense all the time.
He really suited Ollie's hell to leather system.
Exactly. I think in a system, I'm hopeful he'll have a big old bounce back next year. I'm going overrated Edouard Mendy.
Okay.
I think Edouard Mendy...
For £20 million, Edouard Mendy
we can talk about the fee.
Is an overrated keeper. Okay.
I think the fee's a really good fee for Chelsea. It's not expensive, is it?
Precisely.
We halfway through the season, when people were calling Romelu a flop and Bruno a flop, people were saying Edouard Mendy is one of the best keepers in the world. We're putting him on at the start of the season. They were putting him on a tee with Alisson. He's got the worst save.
Parallels of my Bruno Lage argument here. Then
he's got the worst save percentage in the league over the last 5 months.
I think he's just rated. I think he's rated. It's the same argument as you're saying from my one earlier with Lukaku and Bruno compared to last season and all this.
No, because
I think he's just a rated keeper. I don't think anyone thinks he's...
I think if you walk down the street now and asked 100 people, how good's Edouard Mendy? 99 would be like one of the best in the league.
I do not think that at all, man. Maybe it's because I'm watching him week out and week in week out.
I do think.
I feel like this is the key.
Twitter and stuff. Who's the best keepers in the league? They go Alisson.
I think he's better than your average keeper.
Edison.
I definitely think he's better than your average keeper. I just think he's also had. He's had a few mistakes this season too.
And his distribution's horrible.
I think he's average. I think he's getting asked to do a lot more than his ability can do, for sure.
Whereas I think if you walked down the street and said to 100 people how good's Lukaku, they would all 99 would go terrible footballer.
So if you went to the street right now and you went, okay, rate me 3 being worst, first being
five
being
worst.
worst.
People on the street who was the top 3 keepers in the league, Mendy would be in and amongst the conversation 100% with most people.
I think he's.
And I wouldn't even have him in my. He'd be close.
I think
to
maybe
sneaking into my top 10.
I think one of the biggest things. That go in his favour is obviously with Kepa he was so bad, and so when people now see Mendy, they go, "Well, he can save a long shot." So he
reacted to a solid presence in goal. I think there was a point in time when people really rated him. Obviously, African Cup of Nations victory, like when you won the Club World Cup, people were putting him on a pedestal somewhat.
He conceded like what?
No,
I don't think
he's kept as many clean sheets. Basically, kept as many clean sheets in like the last 2 seasons as De Gea has across the course of his career or something.
I don't think we start unpicking Edouard Mendy's last season. Let's move on to I reckon the biggest underachiever.
Yeah. All right. So what are our answers to that? I'm going Mendy. You're saying
Bruno.
Bruno, and you're saying
Bruno Lage's impact at Wolves, not Bruno Lage as a manager.
I think Bruno's actually a decent shout for that Fernandes if we're taking that by that category. Biggest underachiever.
2 here. And mainly my ones, Chelsea, and I've also put Everton as well, considering the standard that they were held in the Premier League. To be in a relegation battle, I don't think anyone would have thought so. But more so Chelsea. Like this is
domestically though, because you've made cup finals.
Sure, and lost them, most of them. But yeah, again, if this is Premier League, like it's this, we were talking about Chelsea winning the Premier League. Like I remember I sat here 9 months ago and said that. Kind of forced to. Joe was like, pick one. But, I said Chelsea would win the Premier League. I thought that Lukaku would join and be a huge difference. And we probably slightly regressed a little bit, being quite honest.
Yeah, Lukaku's been a disaster.
Which at times you're playing games where you're trying to fit in so many people, and N'Golo Kante is not the same player as he was last year. Like Chelsea in a whole, yes, they won the Super Cup, which was fantastic. They won the other one that I can't think of, World Cup, which is fantastic. Made the 2 cup finals.
You guys now to be in a situation where you have to turn over your defence in the summer, and you've let Tomori, Gehi, and Co go. Like they existed, that person existed at the club, and you let them go to keep maybe subpar players.
Exactly. And also, like, Malang Sarr's played, I think he's got over 1,000 minutes in the Premier League, and we let go of Mark Gehi. But that's less it. And actually, if you look at the league table, Chelsea have finished 3rd. We finished 4th last season. So that is an improvement. But in terms of the expectation, I guess, and maybe it was after winning the Champions League, everyone was like, they've done so well beating Man City in this final, they could possibly go on and do it further.
To see the gap grow quite substantially between you and Manchester City and Liverpool, I imagine is disheartening as a Chelsea fan. But then
I will also caveat
for that to be your barometer. For Man City and Liverpool to be your yardstick, it's a high stakes game, isn't it?
And I will caveat as well. Up until November, Chelsea looked like they were hot on the tails of the other 2, and then they got the Reece James injury, and then they got the Ben Chilwell injury, and they've also had injuries to other players throughout the season. Kovacic can barely play 2 games without getting injured, but. That's where that's about recruitment, getting a better squad depth. Liverpool deal with injuries, City deal with injuries.
You're going Chelsea. I'm going to go Ralph Rangnick. I think that has just been about as bad of an appointment as could be.
But do you not think, slightly, it's been good to a degree if he's been able to go, this player's awful, get rid of him. No. His player's bad, get rid of him.
No.
What, that he's been able to give an honest assessment to the next manager?
Yeah.
No. And I'll tell you the reason I think no. I think, look, I rate his honesty about the board and stuff like this. Fine, come out, tell us that there's problems here, there's problems
there. Which is
there.
good for a consultancy.
We know those problems exist. We know those problems exist first and foremost. So it is nice to have the honesty. Manchester United fans, I know a lot of the United fans online really back Ralph and rate Ralph and think he's got a lot right. I have to say, I think his honesty with the players has come at the detriment of performances. I think by calling out players and saying nobody's fit, nobody's good enough, can't play systems, blah, blah, blah. His primary role as the coach was to qualify for the Champions League. He's got to the worst win percentage in Manchester United managerial history. He has completely devoided the entire squad of confidence. Not that they had much going into it because of the state that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer left the club in. But it's not worked. By hammering players, it hasn't helped the players improve. Like, fine, behind the scenes, if you want to get into him with the board and say, look, he's not good enough, cool. But publicly, I don't think it's helped the players by coming out and saying they're not good enough, they're not fit enough, they can't work in a system, he can't play this role, he can't play this role. I think the players have eventually just gone, whatever. Some of the stories you hear from behind the scenes, United training 1 day a week. Rangnick doesn't even take training. He doesn't take training. Chris Armas takes training, who's had no experience in a top European league. At some stage, it has to come back to the fact that he was hired as a coach for 6 months. If it was just coming in for a consultancy, just hire him as a consultant and hire somebody else as a coach. I think it's been an absolute disastrous 6 months. He's going to be working 6 days a month in a consultancy role.
Wasn't it a necessary evil because now you've got Ten Hag?
Fine.
Just to fill that gap. Because who else would have come in that interim period?
Well, there were other interims available.
There was, but would any of them...
This is why. I remember sitting, I don't know whether it's you two I did a podcast with, I was like, I don't want an interim.
You've said that many times.
Get an interim. I didn't want an interim then, and it didn't work. And I just think that it's been a disaster. And I would throw Ollie into this as well. Underachiever, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, finished second last year, signed 3 world-class players, and it was an absolute shitfest under him. So Ollie and Ralph being there together because it's been a disastrous time coaching-wise. Have you ever seen a team that looks more poorly coached than this Man United side? They don't know what they're doing. They can't pass the ball to each other, and the players can get lumped in there as well, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Whole of Manchester United.
Yeah, emphatic answer for Underachiever from you two then. So I won't spend long on it, so we can move on. But I've got Leicester and Aston Villa down. I mean, ninth and 14th respectively. I mean, Villa have been a little bit unlucky. I feel like you could probably swap their positions, and that'd be a better representation of how good these teams have been in the Premier League. Leicester have the 3rd worst defence in the league by expected goals.
They need to sign some centre backs.
Aston Villa have spent £350 million in the last 3 years and still find themselves in transition, unable to break into the top 10, which is why Dean Smith got the chop. Steven Gerrard, has been fine. The performances have improved somewhat, but not substantially, and he's done it with better players than Dean Smith maybe had at his disposal, or he's got longer, more time with it. But yeah, I just think one of those Midland sides, because they were primed to. Leicester was sort of. This was supposed to be the season where they established themselves as one of the top 6 sides, right? And they've completely fallen by the wayside. So, yeah. Let's move on.
Best newcomer, next category.
Do you want me to go first?
You can do.
Yeah, I went for Jose Sarr. He sprung to mind straight away. There's a few other candidates. I mean, there's a lot of candidates, isn't there? Luis Diaz, Romero, Kulusevski, Konate in the Champions League, Tomiyasu, Kukurea, Bentancur. But yeah, I went for Jose Sarr. And I know that we've kind of poo-pooed Wolves a little bit in the Bruno Lage section, but he is literally one of the reasons they are currently in the position they are.
The defence is why they're in the top half.
So he's been sensational, hasn't he? Especially for under £8 million. Stopped 80% of shots that he's faced. Has the best save percentage in the league. That's a massive 3% more than any other goalkeeper.
Almost unsustainable, some would say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they tail off at the end of next season, then I'll be clipping this out. I'll be dropping it on my timeline. 11 clean sheets, only betted by 5 other clubs in Europe's top 5 leagues. He's when you look at his post-shot XG, he's kept out an extra 10 goals than the average goalkeeper would have, which is the 2nd best record in Europe. And he has almost carried them to a top 10 finish. He's been outstanding, and he's 29. He's got his first senior cap this year, so it's a real feel-good story, isn't it, as well?
It's a great answer.
I think he's got to rank pretty highly.
I've not got a better answer than that. I mean, Luis Diaz, I think, has had the biggest impact I can remember. Bruno was, prior to Luis Diaz, the best January signing I could remember in an awful long time, and then Luis Diaz has just come along. And I mean, StatsBomb put out his radar today. He's literally, we're talking top 1 percentile of every category available for a forward in Europe. He has just been monstrous. He's whenever I watch them, I'm like, hell, he's the best player in the forward line. Yeah. Mate, the eye test wise, he's the best player in the forward line, and he's been here 6 months.
It looks like he's been playing there for 5 years. It's crazy. I think we all kind of thought he'd be good, and he'd, especially next season, give him 6 months to kind of settle in. Next season, he'd be kind of battling for that first team spot.
That's exactly what I said. I was like, listen, he'd be good in flashes, but he's been playing. He's been playing on the left in a 4-4-2 for Porto. Give him 6 months. It literally took him 6 minutes.
Mate, it's ridiculous.
Romero and Kulusevski deserve shouts.
Yeah,
Romero and Kulusevski deserve big shouts because Kulusevski's numbers have been outrageous. And Tottenham fans are like, well, he's had a better impact than Luis Diaz. Still, I think he's got better numbers, but impact-wise, I think Luis Diaz, around sort of January, when Liverpool were struggling a little bit and were they 8-9 points behind Manchester City, and people were like, "Ooh, not sure what's going on here." I think he's just propelled them to new heights. So,
and the great thing, I think both those players suit their managers' requirements.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Kulusevski has the physical attributes to carry out that like demanding press that Conte's going to insist. Like Luis Diaz is going to get a little bit more freedom in the final third. Liverpool aren't as hell-bent on pressing as they used to be. Like they're just, the talent identification has been spot on with those two.
Yeah,
so,
ridiculous. Biggest surprise of the season. I think there's one answer for this.
I've gone Arsenal.
You literally said that about every category.
Biggest surprise of the season is Spurs getting Conte.
That's a good shout.
Nobody would have said it in a billion years that Spurs end up with Conte mid-season. No. I know that Arsenal have been good, but I had Arsenal 5th in the predictions, like scrape. Some people would have said, yeah, they'll be battling for that sort of... Nobody in their right mind say Conte after 3 months will be at Tottenham.
That was one of the like jaw-dropping moments of the season, for sure.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I feel like the reason, I guess maybe for Arsenal for me, because I had them a lot, and this will come down to later on.
Them,
and maybe that's why, maybe more so for me.
You had 20 quid for me that Villa would finish above them.
We'll get on that later on. We'll move to that later on. We'll move that later on. But yeah, look, Conte joining Spurs definitely was unexpected. A guy of his level, and also just like especially after the way Jose Mourinho went and how that ended.
He said no in the summer. Like 3 months
prior.
how
he said no in the summer. Indeed.
I think that's a really, really good answer.
Yeah,
and him turning Davies and Emerson Royale into top performers as well in their respective positions, like that's him turning Emerson Royale. He was one of the worst players by the eye test in the Premier League in his first 2-3 months at the club. I thought there was no way back for Emerson Royale, and now he's a really useful wing back.
I still think they'll look top grading, but Conte taking over at top.
Yeah, some of the other options I had were Rice becoming elite. I don't know whether I expected him. I mean, towards the end of the Euros when you were like, okay.
The final of the Euros, in particular against Italy, when he was just get off.
Yeah, I think throughout that summer, like he just maintained that sort of progression, didn't he? Christian Eriksen's impact at Brentford, I think deserves a shout out.
Definitely.
But I don't think the answers get much bigger.
I think that's the best answer for our next category: best redemption arc, Christian Eriksen.
I don't think he had to redeem himself. Obviously, it was a surprise for him to come back from where he was. I think with redemption arc, I've more gone for the narrative, like being panned, being criticised, being shat on, and then they've changed everyone's opinion, like Joe Linton.
Joe
Linton's a great shout for this. Yeah. It is. That's Joe Linton.
Yeah. To go from basically like Newcastle fans being like, why have we spent so much money on a striker who's awful? Even us were like, what's happening there?
That's great.
To now playing a box-to-box midfielder is crazy.
I mean, from a Celtic perspective, I Joe Hart. To be told last year, or the start of last season, or this season, sorry, over the summer, to be told by Nuno Espirito Santo that he was like physically incapable of being a top level footballer must have been at 34 like absolutely gut-wrenching to hear, and he's kind of reinvented himself at Celtic and been, I don't think we win the league without him. So I wanted to shout out Joe Hart as well. I think the comeback has been incredible, and to like best save percentage in 10 years. Like he's really stuck at it with his short passing game, something that Pep criticised him for, something that Nuno criticised him for. Fans in general thought he couldn't play this short passing game. And I know like Celtic a very ball dominant side in their division, but good, like great in Europe as well. And back to the Champions League next season for him. So fair play.
Indeed.
Fine Wine Award. I'm going to go Cristiano.
I think he's just ahead Premier League goals.
Just ahead of Thiago Silva. I think Thiago Silva
for me goes
he's
number one.
Just
37 years old, and like he performs like he's 27. Like one of the best things when you watch him live is how smart he is with his defending, and like how he knows in the Premier League like a lot of strikers are going to do him for physicality and all this, so he just gives them the space and like knows when he's up against a fast guy, again gives him enough space where he can get nick the ball in front of him.
His IQ is incredible.
The only reason I say Ronaldo is I don't like, obviously he's got penalties in there as well, but I think particularly for his Champions League performance, where even though people will laugh because it went out to Atletico Madrid, but without him, like United would have lost like at least half the games in that competition. And at times, I think our second top scorer is Bruno in the Premier League with like 6 goals. Something, without Ronaldo's goals, the amount of times he's pulled United through with hat-tricks and stuff.
They've not been inconsequential goals. They've been a lot of them in match-winning goals.
Match-winning moments. Yeah, I mean, hat-trick against Tottenham, hat-trick against Norwich to win the games.
Yeah. I don't think I've got a better answer than that. I might just go Tony Ralston for best redemption arc, and then Joe Hart for fine wine, because Ronaldo, Thiago Silva, I think they're pretty much 1 and 2, aren't they? Maybe Ibra, maybe Giroud. They're about to win a Serie A title.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
One thing you're glad.
Oh, sorry.
One thing you're glad didn't happen is the next one.
Bernardo Silva going to Barcelona for £40 million because he has been an absolute joy to watch this season, and is one of the most complete midfielders in the Premier League.
Lovely guy.
A lovely guy. We did a great interview with him. Go and watch our Unfiltered with Bernardo Silva after this, but a phenomenal footballer. Yeah. And somehow underrated coming into this season. I think if he'd left for Barcelona, not many people would have batted an eyelid. Maybe City fans, because I think City fans have historically rated him. But he's as much like Rodrigo deserves a lot of credit. Like, he's almost doing the role of, like, he's almost a double pivot by himself in that Manchester City side, isn't he, Rodrigo? He's an absolutely superb footballer. But you throw in Bernardo Silva with him, and I think that third midfield role can almost be anyone there.
Zach?
Arsenal getting top 4.
Well, you've got.
I've called it early. Obviously, Spurs need to lose to Norwich, and Arsenal need to beat whoever they're playing, Everton. More of just so many times this season.
That's so coming back to bite you. You know now Spurs are going to lose to Norwich.
But so many times this season, Arsenal fans on Twitter just doing my head.
You've gone so early with that one, man.
Whereas now, I mean, it needs a look, if Spurs lose to Norwich, they deserve to not get top 4. To be quite honest,
cover the spaces.
Yeah, exactly. But just pissing me off sometimes.
Yeah.
Arsenal fans on
That's
Twitter.
like me. Imagine me going now. Liverpool not winning the quadruple, and then last day Everton. I think Everton not going down. I didn't want Everton to get relegated.
Okay. You're a Frank fanboy.
I really like Frank Lampard. Yeah, he hasn't done an amazing job. He hasn't pulled up any trees. I mean, 16th when he took over, 16th when he leaves, isn't he? But he's taken a decent amount of points, especially at home. And do you know what? I would rather see Everton play in the Premier League than either Burnley or Leeds.
100%. Everton should always be a main fixture in the Premier League.
I really like Everton as a club, so it is what it is.
I mean, I don't necessarily agree. If you're bad enough.
If
get
Burnley stay up at the cost of Everton,
that
is horrendous.
The last true bit of English football.
This is like the playoff final. I God hope Forest win.
God hope.
Seriously, if Huddersfield or you know what I mean, it's like, come on, Forest.
I got vested interest in Huddersfield.
Why?
Just 2 of the Chelsea boys play there.
Oh, you're sad, mate. Honestly, you're sad.
You want to see teams with pedigree, with history, competing in the Premier League.
Either's fine.
Yeah, and Goodison Park, a great arena. A lot of players will say that's one of the hardest away days. You don't want to lose that ingredient from the Premier League.
Yeah. All right. Couple of our pre-season predictions now. Then.
So we've got best shout and worst shout, right?
Best shout.
I'll tell you what, lads. Best shout was rough. Best shout was
at least you're honest.
I've put in that I backed Mason Mount to carry on being like Chelsea's best player.
You were very pro man.
I've always like, even when he was at Vitesse, I've always kind of backed him and said there's a really good player there.
Did you get people that aren't pro Mount though? Because I don't really.
There's nobody. They don't exist today. If they do,
oh my god, they exist. There are a lot of players. There are a lot of people that refuse to believe that Mason Mount is a one of the best in his role, like this season.
It's just embarrassing, though.
People continue to, and the fact that he's 23 years old, man.
It's
like, 23 years old.
If you harbour an anti-Mount agenda, you're in.
There are people earlier this season comparing Mason Mount to Emile Smith Rowe. Like, what? What's happening here?
Stage of their career.
Like, he's 22, Smith Rowe. Mason Mount's a year older than him. Like, come on, what's happening?
He's further down the line in his career, isn't he, Mason Mount?
I mean, sure, yeah.
It just feels
if
much
the argument
better player.
is who do you take right now, it's Mason Mount.
10 times.
But that's mainly because there weren't many others where I mean, when we get onto the worst shouts,
don't worry, lads, I've had some whiffers this season, some fucking whiffers.
Well, what are your best ones? What are your good ones?
My best shout, I think, at the start of the season, pre-season, and building into the season, I thought Arsenal would be very much in contention for the top 4. I had them 5th in my predictions.
You did.
I thought that they would be pushing all the way to get into the top 4. And I was getting battered at the start of the season when they lost those first 3 games. I was saying, don't worry about these first 3 games, because across the course of the final 6 months of last season, they were taking the 3rd most points in the league. And I thought that trend will continue. I thought the summer business was really good. Ben White, I had to stick up for weeks on Twitter because people were calling him crap. And then they started like a lead balloon, didn't they? Started, I think, 3 L's on the bounce or something like that. That loss at Brentford, and people were absolutely after me.
Oh yeah,
Backing the
Tony
best-
beating.
Yeah, I'm backing 100% the Arteta train. I actually think he's had a great season, and that'll be my best shout. The fact that they will be in contention with the top 4.
I backed Brentford. I backed Brentford to do all right in the Prem. To be fair, I backed Brentford to do all right in the Prem, so maybe that one's all right for me.
I actually struggle with this because I tend to be like I was going back through some of the older
You're quite
episodes.
measured.
I'm a little bit more cautious than you and Pat. For different reasons. So very rarely put my neck on the line for any player or manager unless I truly believe in them, like Graham Potter. I don't know, Kieran Tierney, Eddie Howe to an extent, Patrick Roberts. Tears stream.
That's right,
that one didn't work out. There were certain ones that I had a look at some of our summer episodes, and I was pretty insistent that Rodrigo would come good, like that he would be the player for Manchester City that a lot of people are anticipating. Yeah, back in Eddie Howe's appointment, that Aaron Ramsey was a bit of a vanity signing in January for Rangers, didn't necessarily back that whole situation happening, that Gerrard wouldn't be a dramatic improvement on Dean Smith.
I remember us still doing that podcast.
In How to Fix Aston Villa podcast. So there's kind of like several solid ones. I don't think I had any one really, really outstanding one.
Worst shouts then, because there's a lot for me. I mean, Lukaku top scorer, Chelsea winning the league, Norwich staying up. Take your pick. Take
Norwich
your
would stay
pick.
up?
I thought Norwich would stay up. Take your pick.
I said Southampton would go down.
They're not miles off it, mate. They're only on 40 points in there.
I said
they were like 9th
next season.
3 months ago. Remember we didn't explain on Southampton like a month and a half ago.
Yeah, we did.
And it was like from 19th to 9th, and now they're back to fucking 15th. Yeah.
Well, Livermore got injured, didn't he? I said Havertz would win Player of the Year. I said
Jadon Sancho would win Young Player of the Year. I said Jack Grealish would win Player of the Year.
But my worst out of all of them was that. And I will say, heated in the moment, and my head had gone, and I went all out. I said Aston Villa would finish above Arsenal.
Yeah.
And like I really liked.
I'd wound him up.
No, he wound me up a bit, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, they're gonna, because he did the Arsenal shout, and I was like, well, they're gonna be better than you. They're gonna be better than your shout.
I thought they'd be good, and you were so adamant that Arsenal would be crap. You were like, loads of teams will finish by them. Villa will finish by them.
No, it also, I enjoyed Villa's like summer business, man. Like I thought they'd spent really well. I thought they'd been smart and not trying to replicate. Exactly, yeah. Like we've learned the hard way through that. But that's just two of probably a long list that I'm sure many people can mention.
I had so many stinkers this summer. Honestly, some of my bets. I had Lukaku.
I put Liverpool fourth. You put Liverpool fourth.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, United third.
I think because Liverpool. Of the
we
all hammered Liverpool.
There was a bit of an inability last season to compete on multiple fronts for Liverpool. Like they had to give up a little bit around in the Premier League, didn't they? And I think because they didn't invest significantly in other areas of the squad, people thought that might happen again if they want to go deep in the Champions League. I certainly thought like that. I think underestimating Liverpool is definitely one of mine.
This is the first season that I thought to myself, now coming off the back of it, taking learnings from it,
definitely.
That I paid way too much heed to transfers and the impact transfers would have, i.e. Romelu Lukaku, when really I should have been thinking consistency of a squad and improvement of a squad. Like how I had Liverpool fourth.
We sat there in that thing, and I remember I was saying that they've only signed Konate. We were like, they've only signed Konate this summer. Like, there's literally bits of us being like, Gini's left, and he was so vital to them throughout the previous season where they won the Premier League.
Yeah, which weren't.
I don't think we were wrong in kind of looking at it like that.
Ridiculous points, but with Liverpool, I think Klopp's ability and his coaching staff, his ability to get more out of existing personnel, we overlooked. So like Naby Keita has been a better performer, a sounder performer in the Premier League. Obviously, Thiago Alcantara has been a sensation this season. And like Rodrigo, who I mentioned a minute ago, there were people saying that Thiago Alcantara, not the player he was built up to be. I know, absolute heathens, mate. Because he didn't hit the ground running. It took him a little while to get going. His fitness was patchy to start with.
People call him a side merchant.
Idiots. I know, he is. Comparing him to Jorginho, which is disgusting, by the way.
What do you mean? Third best player in the world, Jorginho?
And I back that as well. I think Jorginho had an outstanding campaign, but Thiago Alcantara is a rare shiny of a midfielder. My worst shouts. Leicester would finish fifth. That has aged really, really poorly. That Rafa probably would win over the support Everton. And I thought Vieira was a bit of a vanity signing. So I think what this is proved. Don't listen to us. Don't pay too much, like you said, to transfers. And maybe give managers. That's a really good way to take that, I think. And don't judge managers' future based solely on their track record.
Yeah.
You can teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah. Don't you worry me about Eric. All right. Any other? Is that it for categories?
I think
That's it.
All right. Let's do a couple quick fire, shall we? We've got a bit of time. Swagato Saka, 99 thoughts on De Jong to United.
What a signing!
You should say this, surely.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen. I would be extremely, extremely surprised to see Frankie De Jong rock up at United. I just think there's so many things against it.
Barca do have to sell one of their stars financially, though, to
Do they?
supposedly, like
It
they
depends,
could get
I
another
presume,
bank.
who they're going to sign. I also don't think Frankie de Jong particularly wants to play for United. I think United have a limited budget. Let's say it's 120 million. I don't think 70 million that's going on one player. I think that Eric Ten Hag would love to have Frankie de Jong, but doesn't want to play there. Not in the Champions League. Big fee. Like, I just think it feels like there's just so much against it. I would have odds of like 10 to 1 that this happens. I just think it's totally unrealistic, really. But if United did sign him, I think it's a good signing. It's a good signing. I wouldn't say a great signing because I think he's been good for Barca, but he's not lit the world alight like we were kind of expecting him to at times. And that's not just been his fault because he's played in some poor teams and he's played under some poor coaches who haven't been able to get the best out of him. And obviously Busquets wants to operate in a role that he potentially wants that space of. I think he's never really found a home, and I do worry, is that going to be the same at United? Like, are United going to ask him to do things that he doesn't want to do? Is he going to come in United going to go, you're the defensive mid we've signed? Is that what he wants?
You'd imagine that trend stops with Eric Ten Hag coming in, right? Who likes specialists. He doesn't, necessarily, like Paul Pogba's leaving the club, having said his biggest complaint is they made me play 4 or 5 positions.
Yeah. I mean, let's see. I would love it to happen, but I think it's extremely unlikely to happen at this stage. Okay. Don't really see it. Peter FTW1 says, where should Ousmane Dembele go?
Barcelona. He's
obviously,
the last 6 months of him have been probably some of his best. Yeah. He's the highest assist in for them and in the league, I think. The biggest issue is just the money side of things. Like Barca, no one knows. Like one minute Barca are screwed and they've got no money. They're going to have to sell all of their assets. Lionel Messi can't sign on a new contract. 2 months later, they're getting £1 billion loan. And it's like you just don't know. You just never know what's happening with them at the moment.
Do you not think though, if you're Ousmane Dembele, there is an argument to be made? Like, contracts up. You're going to get very solid offers abroad, elsewhere.
Signing on bonuses.
Barca are a bit, I know they've had a slight resurgence under Xavi, but if Bayern come to the table, I'm moving to Bayern like that tomorrow.
Well, it depends because there's a lot of wide talent at Barcelona right now. I mean, at Bayern Munich right now, isn't there? Serge Gnabry.
Gnabry's into his last year of his contract, isn't he?
Leroy Sané.
Musiala plays there sometimes.
Musiala probably a bit better in the centre, but they've got enough talent in that area of the pitch, haven't they? Well, at least for Dembele to think twice about going there because of the amount of minutes he's going to get.
I agree, but there's wide talent at Barca as well.
They'll probably be
Ansu Fati's back as well.
They'll probably be a bit more sensible with their wages as well, won't they? Bayern Munich. They're probably not going to offer the same wages as maybe a Premier League club would. And you've already sounded out, Jared Bowen from Manchester United. Like Dembele could be a really fun option on that right hand side if Sancho's going to play on the left. Obviously, then you're thinking about Rashford, blah blah blah. Chelsea might be an option if they.
It's where he had his best football under Thomas Tuchel, isn't it?
But if they do turn over some of that front line, if Pulisic does go,
it feels like it's going to be a big
does go, exactly. Chelsea, I think he'd be fun for the Premier League. 18 months ago, 2 years ago, I was saying he'd be a really fun signing for Liverpool. Liverpool now look like ridiculously jam-packed in that area, don't they? They've got Fabio Carvalho coming to the club. Yeah. They've got Luis Diaz now. They've got Harvey Elliott can play on that right. So I'm going to say Chelsea, but I think he probably will sign a contract at Barcelona.
I'm going to say Bayern. I think he ends up at Bayern.
Back to Dortment.
Imagine they need a manager. So should we talk about that potentially?
The new manager,
Dortmund manager Marco Rose has been sacked
literally
today
a couple of hours ago
by Borussia Dortmund. And we did have it mentioned by Alex, Euro expert on Twitter, off camera, saying Graham Potter. He would like the idea of Graham Potter joining Borussia Dortmund. You're a big Potterite.
I am. I don't think he will. Although managed all that time in Sweden, didn't he? So going to the Continent League doesn't scare him. I think that he'll feel like he's created a really good platform at Brighton for them to improve a lot next season. It's weird that they're securing a record finish in the Premier League, right? But people are still saying, "Oh, Brighton, they've been a bit off it, haven't they?" So I think he'll be keen to get a striker. Might have to replace Basuma. There's a bit of surgery to do, but I think they can be a top 10 team, and he'll want to see out that sort of project, won't he? What I was thinking in my head, this is a bit bizarre. You mentioned Dortmund. I was thinking I would like to see Curtis Jones go to somewhere like Dortmund.
He doesn't play, does he, at Liverpool? Really,
850 minutes in the league, and he's turning 22 next season. And here's a guy I was raving about 18 months ago, and he's just not progressed this season. But I still think when he does play, he has the potential to be such a good player. I know there's a few Liverpool fans on my timeline disagreeing with me, and maybe that's because when he does play, he forces it to an extent. Or a lot of people complain about shooting. He has 2 shots a game and puts one of them on target. So I don't really buy into that narrative either. But yeah, exactly. Trying to impress, maybe not making the right decisions because he's forcing it a little bit. But I think he would benefit from. Because of how he's got a high level of technical ability and physicality, I think he could run like La Liga. Not run La Liga, but do really well in La Liga.
Yeah, clip that out. Quickfire Questions.
A Liga or Bundesliga?
Real Madrid. Luka Modric replacement. No.
Yeah. All right.
As for who's joined as manager, God knows yet. God knows. It just depends. I guess.
Glad we got that Ten Hag deal done, because I reckon they would have been sniffing.
Would have been very interesting
about Eric Ten Hag. I mean, let's say Poch was to leave PSG and it didn't work there, and they did axe him, and Mbappe went, right, you're out the door, because it sounds like Mbappe might end up staying now, according to Dimarzio.
And is now the head of
He is now the head of PSG. He can make the decisions he wants, and he spins off Poch. I'd love to see Poch go to Dortmund. Another project club.
I don't know whether he'd
get the chance to play those young players. I don't think he'll have many better options in the market than Dortmund. I mean, if Carlo ends up somehow scratching a Champions League, I don't see him leaving. Like, I think
I thought I saw rumours of Carlo saying he wants to retire like soon or something.
I'd be surprised. I haven't read that he's going to retire.
It's not a bad way to bow out.
Like, what other elite clubs in Europe are going?
Italian managers don't retire until 83.
And what other top European club goes for Poch? Is it like Allegri ends up getting chucked at Juve and he ends up going there? I would rather go probably Dortmund than Juve right now.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think that suits him more, Poch.
I don't know the feeling at Juve right now. Obviously lost the Coppa Italia final to Inter, didn't they? And they are going to finish in the top 4, aren't they? Roma and Lazio well off the pace. I think that's pretty much secure. But I don't know. Is the squad geared towards a Pochettino style of football after going back to someone like Allegri? I'm not sure.
I would rather join Dortmund.
Would be really, really fun. But I do think, He might be thinking.
I think it's a club lower down than, like, now he's done PSG. Like, I think he wants to stay at that like elite top level club.
See them maybe go for a young.
Go for a Dortmund.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Disrespect for Dortmund. Disrespect for Dortmund. Final one is a personal one. Then worst vacation destination. Holiday destination.
I don't know, man. Everywhere I've kind of been has been quite
nice.
Good. Yeah, nice. I've not necessarily had a holiday where I've
Paris.
been like, I quite enjoyed Paris, man. You had a bad time in Paris on like the metro and all that kind of stuff.
Wonderful.
I've quite enjoyed it. Every time I've been to any city, even for like 24 hours, it's always been really nice. Algeria's like.
I remember you coming back and complaining about the croissants.
I remember just going there and having the worst.
Why?
Worst,
what
like
happened?
2 days. It's just horrible. It was just like. I don't know.
Was it during the riots? Was there a bit of a...
No, it wasn't. I nearly got mugged. Like, I walked onto the train and the bloke just...
I mean, if there's one person you get a mug, it's...
I nearly got mugged. I walked onto the public transport. There's like a bloke doing a poo on the floor. Like, I was just like, what's going on here? I was like, I was only there for...
Was that the first time you'd been on a...
And it was just like carnage.
Yeah, I mean, seeing another human... on a train will tarnish your trip, your weekend, anywhere.
Appalling. Like, food I ate was crap. Like, maybe I just went to totally wrong places. The tourist destinations, like, went to the Eiffel Tower, would never go back. It was like you walk 10 yards without somebody going, buy this. I was like, like, what's going on here? Like, it was just carnage. I don't know.
I think you justified your answer.
Yeah,
but I think
yeah, makes sense.
Bad weekend or bad
exactly.
Day.
I think if I went back, I'd probably enjoy it.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. What about you?
Okay. As I said, honestly, most places I've been, I can't really think of it as a bad time. Like, even when we've gone for work, I've quite enjoyed it. When we've been to Milan, and that's been, even when we were in Germany, was quite nice. Munich when we were, Munich when we were there.
I've never
had a bad. Maybe the very beginning of when I went to New York and like Trump had just taken over, I got. Oh no, lovely time. But the first time I was like 18. First time I've like left to go on like a holiday with my mates, and I walk in.
Twist your labs as you know.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't that. No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that.
Have you
two
ever
of
heard
our
of
mates.
Malia?
No, because it was like February or whatever. So it was like the sun's not out in Spain or whatever. And yeah, we land and my mates go through security and I'm like, okay, cool. Like if you've never been to America before, they take your fingerprint. Yeah. So they take my fingerprint and they go, oh, like something's happened here. And I was like, oh, what's wrong? Or whatever. They come with us.
Cavity search.
Yeah, well, thankfully not. And then they take me to the police station, and I'm like, okay, this is a bit odd here. What's happened? Like, obviously, all in America, all the police have got guns as well.
This is
like,
Jalab glasses.
Yeah, it is like innocence. And someone else is there, gets his phone out, and this woman's like, "Put your phone away!" Like obviously an American accent. And I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm going to die."
You were getting a puppy dog back then.
Yeah, it's like an hour goes by.
So being taken away by security.
Well, yeah, hour goes by, they then go, like, Zach Jalab. And I'm like, here, and they come up, here's your passport. And I was like, oh, what's wrong? They were like, oh, your fingerprint come up with someone else's ID. So you mean the thing that is like unique to everybody? Yeah. So I just think they've just like put me down. They've seen the surname Jalab and was like, what's this guy doing here?
What's yours?
Fortunately, never had any really hounding moments on trips. Obviously, you know about my recent flights being cancelled on the day, lost bags, all in one chip window screen, all in one trip. That was not fun. All in transit to South Africa. But I'd say, so me and my mates, we went to Croatia, went to Hvar, an island, and we got a speedboat like from the airport to our hotel. Like really nice, sunny, picturesque. Like water was still, and we're like, let's do this on the way back. This is so nice. The way back, the weather has taken a turn for the worse. The ferry's left. We're like, oh my god, like this is completely the wrong decision, but we have to do it to get to the airport. Like we had an old sea dog do it last time as well, really experienced, didn't say anything, but just had that like aura. Yeah. This lad that looked like Avicii rolls up. Massive like pink sunglasses, hat on backwards, and he's like 18, 19, and I'm like, he is guiding us through these choppy waters. No word of it, like we're all strapped in, like linking arms. There's like 10 of us on this boat. No one's saying a word. A couple of people have to sit at the front. Like I'm seeing them like leave it, like go airborne when we go over waves, and he's got like a Game of Thrones soundtrack like remix on. So we're going through these waves and it's like din, 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 and I was just like, this is how I fucking die. This is embarrassing. Imagine having to explain to my mum and my girlfriend like he died crossing this small bit of water in Croatia with Avicii at the fucking wheel, mate.
R.I.P. to
it was rubbish. That was awful. I got off and I was like, I said to him, how bad out of 10 was that? Because he looked really happy, and all my mates were like, they probably does that all the time, and he was like, no, that was 10 out of 10. Really? I was like, okay.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we could have easily been a news story.
Oh god, that's amazing.
I love it. All right, that's it, isn't it? For another episode of Sunday Vibes. What do you want to plug?
Well, if you guys are at home, check out our Snapchat. We bring you content over there on Football Daily and on Transfer Talk, updating you on all the gossip from around the world of football and transfers.
What a plug. Go and watch the interview with Fabio Carvalho.
What
is he still a Fulham player at this point? Not sure.
Yes, technically he is.
Yes, for
at
now.
The moment. But that is it for another episode of Sunday Vibes. Hope you enjoyed it. Get your comments in below. Hit the like button. Hit subscribe. See you later. Bye.